The sun of Zephyra Prime hung low over the city, casting long shadows across the spired towers of the neutral planet. It was a day unlike any other, for delegates from across the galaxy had gathered in the grand chamber of the Interstellar Council. Humans, Xiliens, Vortans, and countless other species crowded into the hall, each wearing garments that reflected their homeworlds, some shimmering, some mechanical, others organic, pulsating with life. Among them, a lone human figure walked steadily through the corridors, unnoticed by most yet carrying an air of quiet purpose. Kyle Draven, 19 but already a seasoned diplomat, adjusted his simple Earth-standard uniform. Unlike most delegates, he did not wear a cloak of authority or a sparkling insignia. He had no interest in appearances. His focus was on observation, watching, listening, understanding. This was not his first summit, but it was the first one where the humans were not seen as newcomers or curiosities. This time, the galaxy was watching them closely. The chamber doors opened, and Kale stepped into the main hall. Gasps rippled through some delegates, not out of awe, but curiosity. Humans were still rare in this part of space, and Kale's calm demeanor immediately drew attention. He walked straight, shoulders back, head held high but without arrogance. He had learned long ago that confidence did not need to shout to be noticed. At the front of the hall, a crowd had gathered around the Xilian royal family. Towering and regal, with luminescent skin that shifted colors with emotion, the Xilians commanded attention naturally. Their heir, Prince Xirac, had earned a reputation across the galaxy as young, brilliant, but unreasonably proud. At 19, he had already outshone most of his elders in strategy and technology, yet arrogance clung to him like a second skin. As Kale approached the front, Xirac's gaze fell upon him. The prince's eyes glimmered with amusement. He stepped forward, tilting his head in what humans might call a smirk. "Ah," Xirac said, his voice smooth and sharp like a blade, "the representative of the fragile, hairless species. You are far from your weak little planet, aren't you?" A hush fell over the hall. Some delegates laughed nervously, unsure if it was a joke or an insult. Others looked to Kale, expecting him to respond. Most humans would have reacted immediately, defending themselves, arguing, or showing anger. But Kale did not. He simply paused, took a deep breath, and studied the prince. He could see Xirac's youth behind the arrogance. The prince had not yet learned that power without wisdom was fragile. Kale's mind worked fast, analyzing every detail. The shift in Xirac's color patterns, the slight tension in his shoulders, the way his voice carried an edge meant to provoke. Kale said nothing. Instead, he nodded slightly, a gesture of acknowledgement, rather than submission. Then he turned and walked past the prince, letting his silence speak louder than words ever could. The Xilians gasped, not at the insult, but at the response, or lack thereof. In a galaxy where most disputes were answered with pride, firepower, or fiery words, a human who ignored an insult calmly was a puzzle. Xirac's eyes narrowed, flicking briefly to the advisors around him. They too were watching Kale, trying to gauge if the human was strong or weak. Kale's composure made them uneasy. Strength could be subtle. It did not always roar. After passing the royal line, Kale moved toward the central observation deck, where the summit would take place. Delegates were setting up displays, holographic models, alien plants, technological wonders that could bend light, gravity, and even time in small ways. Humans had their exhibits too, drones that adapted to multiple terrains, new energy sources, and communication devices capable of translating dozens of alien languages in real time. None of it was flashy or meant to impress. It was functional, efficient, and human ingenuity in its purest form. As Kale set up the human displays, he noticed whispers among the other delegates. Some were impressed, others skeptical. But he did not react to either. His focus remained on preparation and observation. In his mind, this summit was not about proving dominance through words. It was about showing capability quietly, letting actions speak louder than insults or appearances. Then Zirak approached. The prince moved with an elegance that was almost predatory, as if he owned the room and the galaxy itself. "I see you've brought your toys," Zirak said, his tone light but dripping with derision. "Do humans always travel this far, or is it just curiosity that brings you?" Kale glanced at the prince without anger. "We travel to understand," he said simply, "and to be understood." Zirak raised an eyebrow, amusement flickering across his glowing face. "Understand? Curiosity is one thing. You are here to negotiate, are you not? Or merely to witness superior species in action?" Again, Kale said nothing. Instead, he smiled faintly and continued his work, calibrating a human energy projector for a demonstration later that day. His silence was not weakness. It was intention. Other delegates began to take notice. Whispers grew louder. "The human doesn't respond," one Vortan diplomat said. "He just ignores the insult." Kale could feel the weight of eyes on him. Some were judging, some were skeptical, others curious, but none were hostile. This, he realized, was exactly the moment humans had been waiting for, to prove that dignity, intelligence, and quiet confidence could command respect more than force or flashy words. By mid-afternoon, the formal introductions were complete, and the summit officially began. Kale observed each delegate carefully. He noted Zirak's tendency to dominate conversations with loud proclamations and impressive displays, trying to assert superiority over others. Kale quietly predicted that this approach would win the attention of the younger or more naive species, but the older, wiser delegates would soon see its flaws. A break was called, and delegates mingled, sampling foods from across the galaxy or discussing trade agreements in quiet corners. Kyle moved through the crowd with calm grace. Some aliens attempted to provoke him with subtle insults, testing whether humans were easily rattled. Every time, Kale maintained his poise, replying with neutral courtesy or simply smiling and moving on. As the sun of Zephyra Prime dipped lower, painting the city in amber light, Kale found himself near a panoramic window overlooking the capital. He could see starships arriving from distant systems, their lights blinking like distant beacons. For a moment, he allowed himself to think about Earth, its small blue oceans, its vibrant green forests, its resilient people. He felt a quiet pride. The humans had arrived at the galactic stage, and whether Prince Zirak or anyone else recognized it, their presence mattered. A soft chime echoed through the hall, signaling the start of the evening session. Kale straightened his posture and walked toward the main chamber again. Tonight, demonstrations and contests of skill would begin. The Zillions would likely try to show off, and Kale knew this was the perfect opportunity to show, rather than argue, human worth. As he walked past Zirak once more, the prince gave him a final glance. There was a flicker of frustration in his glowing eyes, a challenge unspoken. But Kale did not stop. He did not glance back. He walked calmly into the chamber, every step deliberate, every motion confident. In a galaxy where arrogance often ruled, Kale's silence was a statement. It was not just about him, it was about humanity. And though Zirak did not yet understand it, humans had their own ways of shining. The summit was just beginning. The next morning, the summit hall buzzed with activity. Light from Zephyra Prime's twin suns poured through vast crystalline windows, casting sparkling reflections on the polished floors. Delegates moved about in a mixture of purpose and curiosity, exchanging greetings, presenting their technologies, and sharing ideas from worlds far and near. For Kale Draven, it was a chance to observe, not just the surroundings, but the subtle undercurrents of personality, hierarchy, and pride. Prince Zirak, meanwhile, seemed to grow more impatient with every passing moment. He strutted through the hall, his glowing skin shifting from deep indigo to sharp crimson, reflecting irritation and challenge. His entourage of advisors whispered strategies into his ear, but Zirak ignored them. His attention was fixed entirely on Kale and the humans. "You see," one Zillion advisor murmured, "the human dares to remain calm. Most species would have reacted to the insult yesterday. This one, he does nothing. What is he thinking? Zyrak's eyes narrowed. He is thinking he is clever, but arrogance without power will not win here, he said, his voice low and dangerous. I will show him the difference between human curiosity and Zillion superiority. Kyle, unaware of the private exchange, continued preparing the human displays for the morning sessions. Their table was modest compared to the Zillion's dazzling holograms and advanced gravitic experiments, yet every device had purpose. Every invention reflected human adaptability, the ability to solve problems with efficiency, creativity, and resilience. As the delegates gathered for the first demonstration, Zyrak stepped forward, his voice booming.
Citizens of the galaxy, observe the pinnacle of Zillion innovation. Our gravity-bending devices and hyper-efficient energy systems are unmatched. Witness what the future looks like under our guidance. The crowd murmured in admiration.
Humans glanced at Kale, expecting him to feel intimidated, but he only smiled faintly. He had seen enough arrogance to recognize its weaknesses. Pride often led to mistakes. Overconfidence blinded even the brightest minds. When it was the humans' turn, Kale stepped forward calmly. Our approach, he said, gesturing to the table of devices, is different. We focus on adaptability and collaboration. We build tools that work with the environment, not just for display. Efficiency is not just about speed or power, it is about understanding the problem fully and finding the most practical solution. Some delegates raised eyebrows, skeptical of the understatement. Yet Kale's tone carried authority, not arrogance. It was confident, but measured. He was not trying to impress. He was demonstrating clarity and focus. The first task was announced. A challenge involving zero-gravity navigation through a simulated asteroid field, meant to test ingenuity, coordination, and speed. Zyrak smirked at Kyle, certain that humans would struggle. Watch carefully, the prince said. These humans will fail. They are not built for tasks that require precision and brilliance. Kyle did not respond. He observed the simulation, carefully, noting the obstacles and the rules. While Zyrak relied on raw speed and flashy maneuvers, Kyle considered strategy, timing, and teamwork. Humans were not the strongest or the fastest, but their ability to adapt quickly and coordinate effectively gave them an advantage. The challenge began. Zyrak shot forward like a streak of light, weaving and twisting, his advisors cheering. He moved with brilliance, but there was recklessness in his style. One minor miscalculation sent him careening into a simulated asteroid, losing precious seconds. Kale moved steadily. Instead of rushing, he calculated trajectories, anticipated obstacles, and adjusted as he went. He worked with a team of human engineers and diplomats, sharing information silently and responding to unexpected changes with calm efficiency. Slowly, methodically, he progressed through the course. Spectators began to notice. Whispers circulated. The human is steady, precise, and efficient. He adapts, he learns the environment rather than trying to dominate it. Even some Zillion advisors leaned forward, intrigued. Zyrak recovered quickly and surged ahead again, but his initial collision had cost him time. Kyle's team, moving as one, overtook the prince with smooth coordination. For the first time, Zyrak felt frustration. He had underestimated humans. After the navigation task, another challenge followed. Quantum problem-solving puzzles projected in holographic form. Delegates had to analyze complex patterns, anticipate outcomes, and program solutions quickly. Zyrak immediately began working alone, confident in his genius. His fingers moved with speed, his glowing eyes darting across the puzzle. Yet he ignored smaller details that humans would notice. Hidden variables, unexpected connections, subtle hints in the environment. Kyle approached differently. He divided the puzzle into sections and delegated portions to team members, combining their strengths. A human engineer spotted a hidden variable that Zyrak had overlooked. Kyle incorporated it seamlessly, finding a solution faster than the prince. The audience reacted with astonishment. Zyrak's jaw tightened. He had assumed superiority based on youth, intellect, and heritage, but humans had something different: adaptability, cooperation, and focus under pressure. These were qualities that no amount of technology or status could replace. During a short break, Kale observed the prince from across the hall. Zirak was fuming, pacing back and forth, trying to mask his irritation behind a facade of confidence. Kale's quiet composure was like a mirror, reflecting what Zirak could not see. Arrogance can blind even the brightest minds. "You are human," Zirak said, lowering his voice to his advisors. "But you are strange. Most humans would fight, with words. Most would lose their temper, yet that one, he does nothing, and he wins." An older advisor nodded slowly. "Yes, Your Highness, that is his strength. Humans do not always show it, but they learn quickly, they adapt, they persist. That calm you see is not weakness, it is focus." Zirak's eyes glowed a deeper crimson. He hated losing, hated being outshone, and yet he could not understand why he felt respect and unease toward Kale. The human silence was louder than any argument, more impactful than any display of Zillian superiority. As the afternoon session began, the challenges became more interactive. Kale and his human team worked on building a small energy relay system that could adapt to multiple alien technologies. Delegates from other species attempted to interfere, curious if humans would falter under pressure. Kale remained calm, explaining procedures clearly, sharing responsibility and adjusting strategies in real time. Meanwhile, Zirak attempted to impress with flashy holographic displays and rapid-fire problem-solving. Each time he succeeded spectacularly. Kale's human team had already achieved similar results without showiness, relying solely on efficiency and teamwork. The contrast was clear to every observer. Humans did not need grandeur to demonstrate skill. By the end of the day, whispers had spread through the hall. Humans were no longer seen as fragile newcomers. They were respected competitors, calm under pressure and capable of unexpected brilliance. Even some of the younger Zillian delegates looked at Kale with admiration, recognizing that raw talent alone was not always enough. During the closing session, Kale approached Zirak one final time. Before the day ended, the prince was still bristling with irritation, his glowing skin flickering with tension. Yet Kale did not speak to him directly. He nodded politely, acknowledged Zirak's efforts with a simple gesture, and walked away. Zirak froze. His pride refused to let him react, yet a seed of respect had been planted. He had been bested not by force, not by words, but by quiet intelligence, strategy, and composure. Kale, meanwhile, felt satisfaction, not pride, but understanding. The galaxy underestimated humans too often. Their strength lay not in arrogance or spectacle, but in resilience, creativity, and the ability to adapt. And tomorrow, when the challenges continued, Kale knew that human ingenuity would shine even brighter. Outside the hall, the twin suns of Zephyra Prime dipped toward the horizon, painting the city in warm amber light. Delegates returned to their quarters, whispering about the day's events. One thing was certain. Humans had arrived on the galactic stage, and Kale Draven was a symbol of their quiet strength. The sun rose over Zephyra Prime, casting long golden beams through the crystal towers of the capital city. The summit hall was alive with energy again. Delegates from countless worlds gathered for the next set of contests, each hoping to demonstrate the superiority of their species. Humans, once viewed as fragile and new, had now earned cautious attention. And at the center of this growing scrutiny was Kale Draven. Prince Zirak was already present, pacing in front of the Zillian exhibition area. His glowing skin pulsed from deep violet to fiery red, signaling irritation and determination. He had not forgotten the events of the previous day. Every human accomplishment had felt like a challenge to his pride. Today, he vowed to reclaim his dominance. Kale entered the hall with calm confidence, his human team following silently. There were no dramatic gestures, no attempts to draw attention. Yet all eyes followed him. Humans had learned to stand out without boasting, and Kale, embodied that lesson perfectly. The first contest of the day was announced, an interspecies problem-solving relay. Delegates had to navigate a maze of shifting gravity fields, energy barriers, and holographic obstacles. The challenge would test coordination, adaptability, and creativity more than raw strength. Zyrac's advisors whispered strategies in his ear. The prince nodded sharply, then stepped forward with a smirk. "Watch closely," he said. "The human will falter. I am unmatched in speed, intelligence, and skill. This will be a simple victory." Kyle did not respond. He only surveyed the course calmly, noting patterns, timing, and potential pitfalls. He instructed his team quietly, dividing tasks efficiently. Humans were not fast in the same way Xiliens were. They did not rely solely on reflex, but their strength lay in observation, adaptation, and teamwork. The contest began. Xirac surged forward, moving with dazzling speed and precision. He twisted and spun through obstacles, his glowing body leaving streaks of light in the air. Spectators gasped at his brilliance. Yet in his confidence, Xirac failed to anticipate small but critical shifts in the maze. One sudden change sent him colliding into a low-energy barrier, costing precious seconds. Kale moved differently. He did not rush. Step by step, he analyzed each obstacle, communicated silently with his team, and adjusted their route dynamically. Where Xirac relied on power and flair, Kale relied on strategy and coordination. Slowly, steadily, the human team advanced, making fewer mistakes and adapting instantly to unexpected changes. Spectators began to notice. "The human is calm, precise, and efficient," murmured a Vortan delegate. Another added, "He learns faster than anyone else in the room. Look at the teamwork. There is no ego, only focus." Even some of Xirac's younger Xilian peers watched with quiet amazement, realizing that raw brilliance could be matched and even surpassed by intelligence, applied with care. By the time the first stage of the contest ended, Kale's team had completed it flawlessly. Xirac finished a moment later, flustered and frustrated. For the first time, he felt human ingenuity surpass Xilian pride. His glowing skin flickered with irritation. The next stage was announced, a puzzle of quantum energy alignment, where delegates had to stabilize a network of energy nodes by predicting quantum fluctuations and coordinating multiple adjustments in real time. Xirac immediately assumed he could solve it alone, relying on his speed and brilliance. He began manipulating the nodes, his fingers moving faster than most eyes could follow. Kyle approached differently. He analyzed the network calmly, breaking the problem into manageable sections. He assigned parts of the puzzle to team members best suited for them. He combined observation, calculation, and collaboration, adjusting strategies whenever unexpected fluctuations occurred. Humans did not need to dominate individually. They leveraged collective intelligence. As the nodes stabilized one by one, whispers swept through the hall. Delegates began to understand that human strength was adaptability. While Xirac's solo brilliance was impressive, it was limited by his ego and impatience. Humans worked as a unit, thinking ahead and responding instantly to challenges. Xirac's frustration grew. Every time he tried to manipulate the network faster, he overlooked subtle cues that humans had already accounted for. His movements became rushed, his glow flashing from red to crimson. Finally, the last node clicked into place under Kale's guidance. The human team had completed the puzzle before Xirac could finish, leaving the prince glaring and speechless. During a short break, Xirac retreated to a quiet corner with his advisors. "This is impossible," he said, his voice low but tense. "How does a human think so quickly, adapt so fast, and remain calm under pressure? I cannot understand it." One older Xilian advisor regarded him quietly. "Your Highness, it is not that you are inferior. Humans are different. They do not rely on arrogance or raw talent alone. They observe, they learn, they adapt. Calmness under pressure is their strength. You have yet to understand this, but you will." Xirac's eyes glowed a deeper crimson. He did not like hearing this, but the truth burned inside him. His pride, demanded dominance, yet human ingenuity could not be ignored. The final stage of the contest was announced, a collaborative simulation involving multiple species, where delegates had to stabilize a failing orbital station while under time constraints. It required communication, problem-solving, and coordination across species with very different methods and technologies. Zirak immediately assumed he should lead, dictating strategies to everyone around him. Kyle, however, observed first. He noted each species' strengths and weaknesses, listened to suggestions, and quietly guided the team through subtle gestures and nods. Humans communicated without ego, valuing input over control. The simulation began. Zirak barked orders and tried to dominate the process. At first, it seemed to work. His raw brilliance helped make quick adjustments. But as the simulation progressed, conflicts arose between delegates. Zirak's impatience led to mistakes. Some alien teams ignored him, feeling frustrated by his arrogance. Kyle, on the other hand, guided the human team with patience. They anticipated problems before they arose, redistributed tasks efficiently, and adapted to unexpected changes in real time. Slowly but surely, the humans and their collaborators stabilized the station. Spectators were astonished. Humans had completed the simulation flawlessly, while Zirak's team struggled to keep up. Finally, the simulation ended. Kale stood calmly, breathing evenly, while his team celebrated quietly. He did not boast, did not gloat. His silence, however, spoke, louder than words ever could. Zirak stared at him, struggling to control the emotion swirling inside. He had been bested, not by force, not by words, but by strategy, adaptability, and composure. For the first time, the young prince realized that pride alone could not guarantee success. Humans had something different: patience, intelligence, and teamwork, all combined in a way that even brilliance could not overcome alone. Delegates from other species began to murmur in admiration. Humans, and they are remarkable. They do not shout or display arrogance, yet they excel where others fail. Kale observed the reaction silently. He did not need recognition, yet he felt satisfaction. Not personal pride, but a quiet acknowledgement that humans were capable of extraordinary things when calm, focused, and collaborative. After the contest, Kale walked past Zirak once more. The prince attempted to make a cutting remark, something sharp and provocative. But Kale did not respond. He nodded politely, acknowledged Zirak's efforts with a calm gesture, and walked away. The prince froze. His pride wanted to lash out, but his mind struggled to process what he had just witnessed. Kale had bested him in multiple contests without raising his voice, without anger, without arrogance. The young human had demonstrated that strength was not always loud or flashy. It could be subtle, quiet, and far more effective. Outside the hall, the twin suns of Zephira Prime dipped toward the horizon, casting golden shadows on the city. Delegates returned to their quarters, still whispering about the day's events. Humans were no longer seen as fragile or inexperienced. They were respected competitors, capable of adapting, learning, and excelling under pressure. Zirak, however, retreated to his chambers alone with his thoughts. His glowing skin flickered from deep red to violet, signaling frustration, confusion, and a reluctant respect for Kyle. He had underestimated humans. He had assumed arrogance or display would intimidate them, but Kyle had remained silent, calm, and unbeatable in strategy. In that moment, the prince understood a truth he had never learned before. Sometimes silence and composure are more powerful than pride and words, and sometimes the quiet strength of humans could surpass even the most brilliant and confident alien heirs. Kale, meanwhile, walked back to the human quarters. He was tired but calm. The challenges had tested his patience, his intelligence, and his ability to work under pressure, but humans had proven themselves. And tomorrow, when the next set of contests began, he knew that the galaxy would see even more of their quiet brilliance. The human presence was no longer a curiosity. It was a statement, and one young prince was beginning to understand that human Ingenuity and composure were forces to be reckoned with. The summit was far from over, but Kale Draven had already made an impression that would be remembered across the galaxy. The morning sun spilled over the crystalline towers of Scifi Prime, casting a golden glow across the summit hall. After 2 days of intense contests, whispers of admiration for the humans were now widespread. Delegates from distant star systems looked at Kale Draven with respect and a hint of caution. It was clear that humans, once underestimated, were now serious competitors. Prince Zirak, however, remained unsettled. His pride had been bruised. He paced back and forth in his chambers, the glowing colors of his skin shifting rapidly from deep crimson to violet, signaling frustration and a growing determination to reclaim his pride. "They should not be this competent," Zirak said through gritted teeth. "Humans are young, inexperienced, and small in number. Yet that one, he moves with calm confidence and outperforms us at every turn. How is it possible?" An older Zillion advisor, observing Zirak's agitation, spoke carefully. "Your Highness, humans are clever, adaptable, and patient. They do not rush or boast. These qualities make them resilient. You have underestimated them because you expected aggression and noise, but strength is not always loud." Zirak's eyes flickered crimson. "Perhaps," he admitted reluctantly, "but I will not allow this human to surpass me publicly again. I will regain control of this summit." Kale, meanwhile, prepared for the day's challenges. Today's tasks were more complex and collaborative than ever before. Delegates would be grouped across species, requiring negotiation, compromise, and adaptability. This was precisely the kind of test where humans could excel, and Kale had already begun formulating a plan in his mind. The first challenge involved stabilizing a malfunctioning artificial planet core. Each team had limited resources, and coordination across different technologies was crucial. Zirak immediately began issuing orders, his arrogance evident as he tried to dominate every aspect. Kyle observed quietly. He did not react to Zirak's attempts to undermine him. Instead, he analyzed the situation carefully, noting the strengths of each team member, human and alien alike. With subtle gestures and precise instructions, he guided his team efficiently, ensuring every action was coordinated. The contest began. Zirak charged ahead, confident that sheer skill and speed would secure victory. He made bold moves and flashy maneuvers, but his impatience soon led to mistakes. Alien collaborators hesitated under his domineering style, creating minor delays that compounded quickly. Kyle, on the other hand, moved with deliberate calm. He anticipated problems before they arose, communicated silently and effectively, and adapted strategies in real time. Every human action complemented the others, and their coordinated effort produced results far more reliable than Zirak's single-minded brilliance. By mid-contest, it was clear to spectators that Kale's team was ahead. Delegates began to murmur among themselves. "Humans, they are incredible. They remain calm under pressure and coordinate flawlessly," one said. Another nodded. "They think ahead and adapt. They do not rush or show ego. That is why they succeed." Zirak's frustration mounted. For the first time, he realized that raw brilliance, speed, and confidence were not enough to dominate. Humans were different, resilient, intelligent, and patient. Every time he tried to force his way, Kale's team adjusted smoothly, turning Zirak's aggression into wasted effort. The next challenge tested diplomacy and negotiation skills under time pressure. Teams had to mediate a simulated conflict between two alien factions while managing complex technological systems. Zirak immediately attempted to control the conversation, imposing his decisions on others. Kale, in contrast, listened carefully, observed reactions, and guided his team toward solutions that balanced fairness and efficiency. When it came time to present the solutions, Kale's team had not only resolved the conflict effectively but also created an innovative system to prevent future disputes. Zirak's team, though flashy and impressive in appearance, had left gaps that required outside correction. The audience was silent for a moment, then erupted in applause. Even some Zillion delegates, who had once looked down on humans, nodded, with approval. Zyrak's pride burned, but he could not argue with results. During the lunch break, Kale observed Zyrak from a distance. The prince was deep in thought, alone and visibly irritated. Kale noted the subtle shifts in body language, clenched fists, a rigid stance, eyes darting over his notes repeatedly. Zyrak had expected humans to falter under pressure, but instead, they excelled quietly and efficiently. Kale's attention returned to the exhibits and challenges for the afternoon. Today's final task was a team-based simulation of interstellar emergency response. A disaster had struck a planet on the edge of the galaxy, and teams had to coordinate evacuation, resource allocation, and stabilization of the planetary systems. Zyrak approached the simulation with bold confidence, attempting to assert control over every detail. His team followed orders with hesitation, unsure when to act independently and when to obey. Every delay created tension, and Kyle noted that Zyrak's style, while brilliant, could not sustain efficiency in such a complex scenario. Kyle's team approached the simulation differently. They divided responsibilities, utilized each species' unique capabilities, and adapted instantly to sudden changes. When an unexpected system failure occurred, Kale calmly assessed the situation, issued clear instructions, and coordinated the response seamlessly. Every step was deliberate, every move effective. As the simulation progressed, it became evident that Kale's human team was far ahead. They stabilized the planet, evacuated its population safely, and restored critical systems faster than any other team. The delegates watching could not hide their astonishment. Humans were no longer just competent. They were exceptional under pressure. When the simulation ended, Kale walked past Zyrak once again. The prince attempted to make a sharp comment, but Kale did not flinch. He only nodded politely, acknowledged the effort, and moved on. The silence was heavier than any argument, and Zyrak felt the full weight of it. Finally, the summit officials called for a closing assembly. Delegates from every species gathered, discussing results and outcomes. Humans had consistently excelled in every challenge, not through force or arrogance, but through intelligence, teamwork, and composure. Even the older Zillion advisors acknowledged it openly. Humans are remarkable, one of them said. They do not need grandeur to demonstrate power. Their ingenuity, patience, and adaptability make them formidable. Zyrak, standing beside the prince of another system, clenched his fists. He had learned something critical. Pride alone could not secure dominance. Humans had a different kind of strength, one that relied on calm, observation, and collaboration rather than ego. Kyle, meanwhile, returned to the human quarters. His team celebrated quietly, but he remained calm, reflecting on the lessons of the day. Humans had proven themselves not through boasting or conflict, but through quiet competence. The galaxy had begun to see them differently, and Kale knew that the next day would cement this recognition. As the twin suns of Zephira Prime dipped toward the horizon, Kale looked out over the city from a balcony. Ships glimmered in the distance, and the sounds of the city below reminded him of Earth, the home he represented. The humans were no longer a curiosity. They were a force respected for their intelligence, adaptability, and composure. And somewhere, nearby, Prince Zyrak was learning his own lesson in humility. For the first time, he realized that arrogance could be a weakness and that humans, small, young, and seemingly fragile, could achieve greatness without shouting, without dominance, and without pride. Kyle turned from the view, walking back to his quarters. The summit was far from over, but the tide had shifted. Humans had made their mark, and Prince Zyrak had been forced to see that strength came in many forms, not just in brilliance or status. Tonight, the galaxy had witnessed a turning point. The summit hall of Zephira Prime was quieter than usual that morning. The previous days had been full of challenges, contests, and debates, leaving delegates exhausted but enlightened. Yet beneath the calm surface, tension lingered. Eyes were still on Kale Draven, the young human who had defied expectations at every turn. Prince Zyrak arrived first, pacing in front of the Zelian exhibition area. His glowing skin was a mixture of deep violet and soft amber, reflecting a combination of frustration, reflection, and something unfamiliar: respect. For 3 days he had tried to assert dominance, to show humans that Zelian brilliance was unmatched. And for 3 days Kale had remained calm, efficient, and capable, turning every attempt to intimidate or outshine him into proof of human ingenuity. Zirak's advisors watched silently. "Your Highness," one said cautiously, "it is clear. Humans do not operate like other species. Their strength lies not in arrogance or flash, but in observation, adaptability, and calm execution. You cannot measure them by traditional standards." The prince's hands clenched, then relaxed. "I understand," he admitted quietly, a rare moment of humility. "But understanding is not enough. I must learn from them. I must see what makes them succeed." Kyle entered the hall, walking with his usual calm confidence. Delegates turned to observe him. Humans had proven themselves repeatedly, navigating zero-gravity obstacles, solving complex quantum puzzles, stabilizing simulations of failing planets, and mediating interstellar conflicts. The admiration was palpable, and whispers of "humans are different" filled the air. The final event of the summit was announced: a collaborative interspecies council simulation, testing negotiation, diplomacy, and leadership under stress. Each team would represent multiple species and work together to resolve a galaxy-wide crisis. The goal was not only to solve problems, but also to demonstrate leadership, humility, and coordination. Zirak's confidence surged at first. He assumed his brilliance would dominate the simulation, that his strategy would win without question. He gathered his team, issuing orders with sharp authority, but Kale observed quietly, analyzing strengths, weaknesses, and potential conflicts among team members. When the simulation began, Zirak's team initially moved quickly, his confident commands executed with precision. Yet as the crisis evolved, disagreements emerged. Alien delegates resisted his commands, frustrated by his domineering style. His brilliance could not compensate for the lack of collaboration. Kale, on the other hand, acted differently. He communicated clearly and calmly, listening to suggestions from every team member. When conflicts arose, he mediated effectively, balancing fairness with efficiency. His decisions were deliberate, his instructions precise, and his presence reassuring rather than intimidating. The simulation progressed and Kale's team steadily gained ground. They coordinated across species, adapted to unexpected developments, and found creative solutions where others struggled. Zirak watched from his side, growing frustrated but also fascinated. Humans did not rely on authority or speed. They relied on adaptability, observation, and cooperation, qualities that allowed them to excel without dominating anyone. As the simulation reached its conclusion, Kale's team had successfully resolved the crisis. Resources were allocated efficiently, conflicts were mitigated, and systems stabilized. Delegates from across the galaxy applauded, not just for the results, but for the manner in which humans had achieved them. Calm, focused, and efficient, they had led without boasting and succeeded without arrogance. Zirak stepped forward, his expression conflicted. Pride and irritation warred with admiration and understanding. He approached Kale cautiously, unsure how to address the young human who had bested him without confrontation. Kale noticed the prince's hesitation but did not speak first. He only nodded politely, acknowledging Zirak's presence. His calm composure spoke volumes, demonstrating that he held no resentment, no desire for revenge, and no need for verbal victory. Finally, Zirak spoke. His voice was quieter than usual, lacking the sharp edge of arrogance. "Human, you have shown me something I did not expect. You are capable, calm, and clever. I underestimated you." Kyle's lips curved into a faint smile. Understanding comes with observation, he said simply. It is not about winning with force or words. It is about seeing the problem clearly and responding effectively. The prince's glow shifted from red to a soft amber, signaling a mixture of humility and newfound respect. For the first time, Sirac felt what it was like to learn from another species rather than dominate it. Delegates watched the exchange silently. It was a turning point, not just for Sirac, but for everyone present. Humans had not only excelled in challenges and simulations, but had also demonstrated a new standard of dignity, leadership, and intelligence. The summit had begun with doubt about their abilities, but it ended with recognition and respect. After the council simulation, Kale walked through the hall once more. Delegates from multiple species approached him, offering compliments, advice, and discussions about collaboration. Even the younger Zillion delegates who had once admired Zirac's arrogance looked at Kale with respect. Sirac followed quietly, observing Kale's interactions. He noticed that humans did not seek praise or attention. They acted with purpose, measured and deliberate, but always considered the perspectives of others. It was a lesson in leadership and humility that the young prince would not forget. During the closing ceremony, the summit officials addressed all delegates. This summit has shown the galaxy that cooperation, intelligence, and adaptability are as important as strength and pride. We have witnessed the brilliance of multiple species, but one young species, humans, has consistently demonstrated calm focus and ingenuity under pressure. Their example should guide us all. A ripple of applause spread across the hall. Kyle stood silently, acknowledging the recognition with a simple nod. Sirac, beside him, lowered his head in respect. The prince had been humbled, not by force or defeat, but by human composure and intelligence. After the ceremony, Kale and Sirac finally had a moment alone. The hall was emptying, and the twin suns of Zephira Prime shone brightly through the windows. Sirac's skin glowed softly, signaling reflection rather than irritation. "You have taught me a lesson," Sirac said quietly. "I thought strength was only power and brilliance. I thought arrogance and command were the path to respect. But you have shown me a different kind of strength. Patience, composure, observation. These are qualities I have yet to master." Kyle nodded. "Strength takes many forms," he said simply. "Sometimes the quietest, calmest approach is the most effective. It is not about dominating others. It is about understanding the problem and responding wisely." For a long moment, the two young leaders stood in silence. In that silence, a mutual respect grew, one not based on superiority or status, but on understanding and recognition of capability. As the delegates departed the summit, humans were no longer seen as fragile or inexperienced. Their reputation had grown not through aggression, arrogance, or spectacle, but through quiet intelligence, teamwork, and dignity. Kale Draven, in particular, had become a symbol of human potential, proof that calm composure and thoughtful action could surpass even the brightest arrogance. Prince Sirac watched the humans leave, reflecting on his own behavior. He had learned humility, the value of observation, and the power of calm intelligence. And though he was still young and ambitious, he understood that true leadership required more than pride. It required patience, adaptability, and respect for others. As Kale walked back to the human quarters, he felt a sense of quiet satisfaction, not pride but understanding. The humans had arrived on the galactic stage, not with loud claims or grandiose displays, but with their innate qualities of intelligence, composure, and adaptability. They had earned respect, not through force, but through the way they handled themselves. That night, Zephira Prime's twin moons rose over the city, casting soft silver light on the towers. Kale stood at the balcony of the human quarters, looking out at the horizon. Somewhere nearby, Sirac pondered the lessons of the summit, already planning how he might become a better leader. In the galaxy, a new understanding had emerged. Humans were not fragile. Humans were capable, clever, and composed. And sometimes, The quiet strength of one human could shift the perspectives of an entire generation of alien leaders. Kyle turned from the balcony, walking back to his quarters with calm confidence. The summit was over, but its impact would resonate for years. Humanity had not only survived intergalactic scrutiny, they had earned respect. And in the process, a young human diplomat had taught a young alien prince that true strength comes from wisdom, patience, and quiet composure. The galaxy had learned something new that day. Sometimes, the mightiest power lies not in words or pride, but in the way one carries themselves with dignity and intelligence.